I see the born of no return. Sister, hey now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now I see the point of no return. It's just
No problem. Alrighty, good evening everybody. It's Tuesday again here at Wide Awake News on the Rinse Radio Network. I hope everybody's in good spirits and hope you've not been totally engulfed by Snowmageddon. Yeah. It's almost the end of January. It's January 27th. 2015. My name is Gary Hendershot, and for the next hour or so, yeah, you bet it, I'm going to be barking at the moon. Yeah, as far as Snowmageddon goes, I'm not sure I can really blame the weatherman. I mean, predicting the weather is not exactly a science. I think it's more a matter of guess your best based on, what you see going on in the radars and the satellites and so on, And sometimes they get it pretty close. Sometimes they're a little bit off. This one that hit us yesterday, they were just scaring us to death. The sky is falling, batten down the hatches, you go out to the grocery store, empty shelves, Actually, around here, we did some last-minute shopping because, we didn't know. We figured we might be snowed in for a day or two. We wanted to make sure we had, the bare essentials covered, In our area here in Northern Virginia, even when we get a really, really horrendous snow, and, we've had a few, we might be housebound for a day, maybe two, until the snowplows dig us out, so... I don't think I've ever seen a snow here where, we were trapped in our home for a week or 10 days, but, they were really pitching the fear to folks up in the northeast section of the United States. They're telling people, you're liable to get 6 feet of snow, Now, because I live in kind of sort of the South, people around here are not real accustomed to seeing snow. So it doesn't take much to cause people to forget how to negotiate an automobile. There were a lot of little fender benders, people around my area just flat are not used to it. I think in our area, we might have got 1 inch, we might have got 2. But in this area, snow is such an uncommon event that, 1 inch or 2 of snow does cause you to, think twice about going out on the road, not because you don't know how to drive in it, but because everybody else has forgotten how to drive in it. I suspect somebody who lived, up in Michigan or Wisconsin or Buffalo, New York, they'd look at our little 2 inches of snow and they'd laugh, they you call that a snow? Shoot, I walked to school in snow deeper than that. The biggest dumpings seem to have hit around Boston, New York area, but for the most part, the major catastrophe that so many of the politicians were beating their chests about turned out, not to be that much. It just wasn't that big a deal. So, once again, we dodged the bullet. And it's got to be because of global warming. It's got to be because you insist on driving that gas-guzzling SUV. All you yuppies out there, it's your fault, and we got to figure out a way to tax you so that you don't continue to heat up the globe so that we don't get the 6 feet of snow that they're promising us. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now, the troubles in Kiev have been going on for some time now. And, we sometimes think things are settling down in Kiev, that folks over there are going to kiss and make up, and just about the time we get hopeful, somebody, starts shooting somebody, and, it seems to flare up again. Well, late last week and pretty much through the weekend, there were a number of skirmishes, particularly around the Donetsk area of Ukraine. I saw some photographs of the Donetsk airport. It was really a shame because that was kind of a world-class airport not too long ago, and now it's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese. It's hard to say if one side or the other really gained ground or lost ground in the most recent fracases, but of course, the usual noise is coming out of that part of the world. The United States says this is all Russian interventionism that's causing these problems. And of course, Russia's sitting there shrugging their shoulders, saying, we didn't have that, we didn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, these are our buddies over here, and if they ask us for some guns and bullets, you betcha we're going to give it to them because they've been our buddies for a long, long time. We're going to do our best to take care of them. There was an interesting item that did come out in the news where some journalist confronted a serviceman who was apparently on the Kiev side of the fracas, and this guy turns around and looks at her and says in perfect English, I think with a New Jersey accent, basically, get out of my face, I'm out of here, and everybody's kind of stunned, saying, how does somebody from Ukraine speak such perfect English and with a New Jersey accent? But it's been known for some time that the United States, in the form of hired mercenaries, basically these Blackwater types, have been involved in the fighting. As much as the United States points the finger at Russia and says, you're sending in trained Russian troops, to fight on the side of the rebels, and as much as that kind of noise has been made, there have been many instances where it's been pretty much confirmed that the United States is doing exactly what it keeps accusing Russia of doing. But kind of a disturbing report, even more disturbing than usual, comes out of that fracas. This was just published today. This comes out of RT. I'm going to read a little bit of this article for you. Ukrainian troops are demoralized, which is proven by an unprecedented incident that occurred last night. This is the defense ministry of the Russian-backed forces. A fellow by the name of Eduard Basurin said, as quoted by Donetsk news agency, an injured Ukrainian soldier who surrendered to the militias said during questioning that anti-retreat units from territorial defense battalions were used against the Ukrainian troops. According to the spokesman, 7 Ukrainian troops have surrendered to the rebels since January 9, with 11 of them capitulating in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry decided to accelerate the graduation of students from the country's military schools and universities in order to deploy them to the conflict zone in the Donetsk and Lugansk regions, TASS reported. It is done to make up for the huge combat losses of officers in the fighting in the southeast and the mass evasion of mobilization by reserve officers of the Ukrainian army. Basically, reserve officers are beating feet and getting the heck out of there instead of joining up. According to parents, the Defense Ministry plans to send over 2,000 undereducated lieutenants to the war-torn southeast. So it appears that the U.S.-backed forces are fielding less than fully prepared officers in their military ranks, which probably explains why these fellows from Blackwater and the other mercenary outfits, soldiers for hire, soldiers of fortune, are so sought after. Again, we hope that cooler heads will prevail in Ukraine. These people lived together for a long, long time. They're intermarried. They did business. It's not like they have any significant racial or social separations. But because one group happens to identify with the Slavs and the other part of the population identifies with the ancient Austria-Hungary army or empire, they seem now at each other's throats. You would hope that cooler heads would prevail, but there is always the possibility when the East and the West have a proxy war going on, and let's call it what it is. This is a proxy war between the United States, its NATO allies, and Russia. I guess the Cold War paid well for many, and a return to the Cold War is of benefit, at least to a few, a certain 1%. Also in world news, there is a new government in Greece. Now, the Syriza party in Greece pretty clearly won the last election, but through some obvious vote tampering, their win was set aside, and a government more in line with Europe and Western banking oligarchies was installed. This time around, the vote in favor of this Syriza party was so overwhelming that even with intense vote manipulation, they were not able to steal this election. Now, what's interesting about the platform of this Syriza party is they're coming forward saying, look, this ridiculous debt load that has been imposed on the people of Greece is not their debt. This is some kind of a deal that was worked out between some guy named Papandreou and the Western banking cartels, and it was a mechanism designed to plunder, rape, and pillage Greece. Now, here in the West, the way it's being reported to us is, those Greek people, they're just lazy SOBs. They expect to retire at 55. They only want to work 34 hours a week or 36 hours a week. They're just lazy Greeks, and they need to tighten their belts, get down, put the nose to the grindstone, and get to work. Now, that's the way the story has been presented to us. We're not hearing the side of the argument that's represented by the Syriza party, where they argue that a government of Greece basically colluded with Western banking interests to plunder Greece, for which they were paid a sizable commission. The Greek people say, look, we did not benefit from all these loans and all this, fast and loose money. We never saw any benefit from it. We don't have the schools and the roads and the hospitals and all the things that, that this money might have bought. We saw no benefit from it. Therefore, by definition, it's not a legitimate debt. We wash our hands of it. Much the way the people of Iceland discharged their debt to Western banking interests. Now, you don't hear much about Iceland because that would be a very uncomfortable story for many, because Iceland has actually done pretty well since they cast off their onerous debt and put a bunch of their bankers and politicians in jail for doing basically the same thing that was done to the people in Greece. Iceland has made a pretty decent recovery. So as much noise as you're going to hear about how these lazy Greeks are just, walking away from, a legitimate debt. Boy, a bunch of deadbeat Greeks. You're going to hear all this stuff about the Greeks in coming days. There is the possibility that this new regime in Greece just might follow the Icelandic model, discharge the debt that they got nothing for. They did not benefit from all this money that was dumped on them by their Papandreou guy and Western banking interests. It was simply a scheme, much like the scheme that's being run on you right now. Okay? It was a scheme to put them into a multi-generational debt cycle that they would never be able to escape. And of course, if you charge up everything on your credit card, you ain't making enough to pay for it. You got to tighten your belt. You got to have what's called austerity. You're just living life too high. You're living life higher than you can afford. You need to pay your debts. You don't need that new car. You don't need that new big screen TV. You got to pay off your existing debt before you buy any of that fancy stuff. So you need to live a little less large. Interesting that reports out of Davos. Remember last week I reported how all the high and mighty were meeting in Davos? Yes, reports out of Davos by the uppas, that upper 1% that controls more than half the wealth of the planet, says, hey, you Americans, part of the reason things are messed up here on planet Earth, because you guys just living a little too high. Your lifestyle expectations are just a little exaggerated. Y'all need to, yeah. I'm not sure that they'll actually use that austerity word here in the United States. In the past, they've just inflated everything to the point where your life became more austere naturally, the natural way. 5 years of humiliation, suffering, over. Anti-austerity party to form government in Greece. Greece leaves behind 5 years of humiliation and suffering, fear, and authoritarianism, said the leader of the winning Syriza party, Alexis Tsipras. Tsipras. Cyprus, I think is how he says his name, Cyprus. He is moving on Monday to build a stable government and plans to get rid of Athens' three main creditors. Good luck, Greece. Why is it I think Greece is going to all of a sudden, be named a terrorist nation. What do you think, guys? You think maybe Greece is going to be right in there with the Islamic State as being, harbingers of terrorists? Going to have drone strikes now on Athens. I laugh about it, but this is one we'll just have to see. We'll have to see how it shakes out through the end of the year, because it's one of those things where if Greece gets away with it, if Greece discharges their debt, perhaps even leaves the European Union, basically goes in, maybe even teams up with the BRICS nations. Russia's already said, hey, if you leave the EU, we'll forgive everything. All that, our embargo on you. We weren't going to send you any food or any aid. Well, if you leave the EU, you can forget all that. Come on down. Let's be buddies. We'll have a new start. So the handwriting's on the wall. If Greece gets away with this, there are a number of other nations, Spain, Portugal, Italy, come to mind immediately, that might also benefit from a similar position on this issue. Keep an eye on it. Let's see what happens. I'm hearing the music in the background. I'm going to have to slip out of here for a few moments while the studio sells some product, but I'll be back with some more barking at the moon in just a few moments. Alrighty, we're back from that break. You are listening to Gary Hendershot. It's Tuesday's edition of Wide Awake News on the Rense Radio Network. And yeah, we got a little bit more barking at the moon to do. Islam, Muslim, terrorist. Islam, Muslim, terrorist. For many, it just makes perfect sense, right? Now, there is no question but that Wahhabist Islam fundamentalism, is not compatible with Western thinking. Okay? I mean, they got their own way of doing things, and frankly, as long as they're doing it in their country, none of my business. If I choose to visit their country, I assume that I will be held to somebody calling me on my other Skype account. Sorry about that. That was a noise in the background. If I happen to visit them in their country, I would assume that I would be held to their law. Now, unfortunately, when they come to my country, they seem to think that I should be in deference to their law. They seem to think that they should bring their cultural norms, their legal system with them when they migrate out of their native lands and into the European nations, perhaps even into the United States. At this stage in the game, there is some significant pushback. It didn't start with this Charlie Hebdo incident in France. It certainly did not start with that, but that seems to have thrown gasoline on the fire. And at this point, the anti-Islam movements in much of Europe are definitely picking up steam. Now, they have been very tolerant of their Muslim immigrants for many, many years. Matter of fact, their governments have mostly given their Muslim immigrants protected status. I mean, in many countries in Europe, you don't talk trash about Islam any more than you talk trash about the Jews. I mean, if you say something nasty about the Jews, you say something nasty about Islam, you go to jail. Here in the United States, you're allowed to talk trash as long as you don't do anything about it. But At this point, elected officials are starting to come into power who have been voted in by factions in many of these government and many of these nations that are anti-Islam. They think it's time to bring these people, you know, if you're going to come to my nation, understand my culture, understand my laws, assimilate, become one of us, or don't come. That simple. This article out of Sweden, this is reported by RT, the leader of the far right, now, of course, they're referred to as far right, the leader of the far right Sweden Democrats Party. Now, here, you know, if you're a Democrat, you're considered a lefty, but they're far rights. Far right Sweden Democrats Party has compared Islamists with Nazis, saying Islamism was perhaps a greater threat for the country than the Nazis during World War II. The leader of the anti-immigration party, Matthias Carlson, said in an interview to Swedish TV that one must take all ideologies seriously and fight them in every way. Nazism was terrible, but Islamist ideology can be even more dangerous for the world, he said. Now, this is not unusual. This is coming out of Sweden. This is not unusual. There are growing sentiments against the Islamic immigration that's been rather significant. I mean, if there are parts of London that are referred to as Londonistan at this point. I mean, it's reported that there are some areas in Paris and some areas in London where the regular cops don't go. They're not welcome. The local Muslims have their own little police forces that run those areas, and it's kind of a no-go zone unless you are a Muslim that lives in that area. So rather than assimilate into their chosen country, the country that they obviously spent a lot of money and went through a lot of aggravation to come to, instead of assimilating into that culture and becoming part of that nation, instead of becoming French, instead of becoming British, they instead wish the French and the British to become Muslim. Convert or die. Another little hot spot to consider. Now, many say that the immigration is really part of the plan. They wish to dilute the majority faction within Western nations. Take the United States, for example. In the United States, our culture is very rapidly being diluted by a rapid influx of Hispanics from the South. Nobody really knows how many millions of illegal border hoppers we have here in the United States. Some say the number might be as many as 50 million. The government puts it more at, 10 to 15 million, with 11 million being the most popular number thrown around. I don't think anybody really knows. In many European nations, this, 20% of the population being immigrants from Muslim African nations, Muslim Arab nations, it's every bit as significant as the United States illegal immigration from the South. Many say that this is part of the plan to dilute the local population to the point where they no longer have that majority voice in running their own affairs. And, of course, the other objective, some say, is to keep you afraid. Have you be afraid of that guy who lives next door to you and speaks Spanish, or that guy who lives next door to you that speaks Arabic. They want you very, very afraid so that you will look to government to solve the problem that they themselves have created. And on another note, King Saud of Saudi Arabia passed away. Yeah, and his nephews and children are now getting all the Mercedes and all the... Saudi Arabia, they're basically the bag men for the CIA. They're the bag men for the Mossad. They're the ones who finance so much of the so-called terrorism of the world. But, I've heard reports that, it's all the Saudis did 9/11 and the Saudis run Hollywood here in the United States, and I just, I have to laugh. Yeah, they probably were ordered to pay so-and-so's bills, but, yeah, right. I'm hearing the music. Have to back out of here for another couple minutes, let the studio do some business, but I'll be back with some more barking at the moon in just a few minutes. And we're back from that last break of the evening, so I got about 12 minutes to finish up. I'm not sure I'm going to get through them all tonight. Let's press on here. You a homeowner? It's kind of, part of the American dream, to get some sort of education, either, learn a decent trade or maybe go to college, become a businessman, make a decent living, buy a home, take a wife, have a couple of kids. It's kind of the American dream. It's the lifestyle that most of us hope to achieve. And for many, it's an attainable goal. I mean, it's gotten tougher over the years, but for most, it's an attainable goal. And, unless you're one of those 20 to 30 somethings that, been out of college for 10 years and still can't find a decent job. But that's another story. That's a story for another day. Let's just say that you have achieved your American dream. And you have joined the ranks of home ownership. Well, shoot, it's my house. If I decide I want to paint my door yeller instead of red, that's my business. If I decide I want to plant a few tomato plants out in the front yard where I get some good sun, that's my business. I mean, part of being a homeowner is a certain amount of self-determination. Right? Maybe not. These days, when you become a homeowner, a lot of neighborhoods have what's referred to as a homeowners association. And in theory, you, as a member of the homeowners association, have a voice in how your community is run. Think of it like a micro-government. You got the federal government, and then you got the county government and or a city government. Well, now you got your little homeowners association, which is yet another layer of government control. And if the members of the homeowners association all gather together and decide that, no, there will be no yellow doors in our neighborhood, all doors will be painted a certain color of red, that is how it shall be. And when you sign the papers to settle on this home that you dreamed of having, you basically contractually bind yourself to whatever rules they decide to come up with. A report comes out of Las Vegas. This is from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Yet another key defendant pleaded guilty Tuesday in the scheme to take over and defraud Las Vegas area homeowners associations. Prosecutors have alleged that McChesney was a straw buyer and controlled HOA board members in the massive takeover conspiracy that occurred between 2003 and 2009. He admitted in his plea agreement that he also participated in dirty tricks to help elect board members who could be controlled by the conspirators. Gee, you think? I mean, not in the United States of America. I mean, here in the United States of America, we believe in representative democracy. You know, your vote counts, and the reason a government is considered legitimate is because you had a voice in how that government was formed, right? Well, it turns out not so much. We kind of figure that there's some hanky-panky going on at the upper levels of government when, guys like the Koch brothers can come up with damn near $1 billion to influence the 2016 elections. We kind of figure that, the money interests probably have more than their fair say in who's going to be elected and how government's going to be run and how much you're going to be taxed and how much they're not going to be taxed. We kind of figure that's probably going on at the upper levels of government. And, get down to the states and we can see a certain amount of, influence peddling going on in the states. We know that the guy who gets elected as the governor pretty much gets to award, state contracts to his buddies. And we know that kind of stuff goes on. But now it comes all the way down to whether or not you can paint your door yellow or red. Yes, even your homeowners association is subject to the kind of corruption that we thought we only had to worry about in maybe state and federal government. We didn't realize that, right here in River City, your homeowners association, the people who decide how tall your grass has to be when you cut it, the folks who decide whether you got your trash can off the curb at the right time of day, and perhaps have the authority to fine you $25 if you left your trash can on the street a half hour too long. The folks who can determine whether or not you can have a garden or not. These folks are bought and paid for, in many cases, by unscrupulous contractors who contract substandard quality services to the homeowners association that you will wind up paying for. Yes, so, America. The American dream, to own your own home, to be able to control, at least somewhat, your own destiny. My home is my castle. I can do what I damn well please. If I want to paint my door yellow, I'm going to get out there and paint it yellow. If I want tomato plants in my front yard, I'm going to have tomato plants in my front yard. Not if you have a homeowners association that you really have no voice in, regardless of how much some of the people who have to deal with these kinds of issues have paid $500,000 for the privilege of buying a home in a neighborhood that's controlled by a homeowners association that is not really acting in their interest any more than the United States federal government often acts in your interest. They act in the interest of those who are their true paymasters. Now, when the imposter-in-chief, Barry Soetoro, Barack Hussein Obama, whatever his name is, isn't it hell when you don't even know the guy's name who you elected as president? I didn't vote for that guy. I wrote in Minnie Mouse. I mean, they gave me this choice. I could either vote for doo-doo or poo-poo, and I held my nose and I wrote in Minnie Mouse. I thought she would do a better job than either of the ones that were. Oh well, that's a whole nother story. But when our president sends a drone out hunting so-called terrorists, 99 times out of 100, it's a wedding party or a funeral party, people burying the guys we blew up the last time, But, when we do it, pimple-faced kid in a Connex box somewhere in Maryland or maybe outside of McLean or perhaps even all the way in Nevada, flies a drone halfway around the world. A lot of the time, they have no idea who they're firing Hellfire missiles at, but yeah, they look like terrorists. They're Arabs. They're Muslims. They must be terrorists. Islam, Muslim, terrorist, right? Hey, that's all fair. It's just collateral damage. It's just one of those unfortunate, fog of war type situations. Gee, we're sorry. We didn't mean to blow up your wedding party. We didn't mean to blow up your funeral procession. We were after a terrorist. Honest, that's our story. We're sticking to it. And, they make all sorts of excuses for their actions. And by and large, we've bought in and they got away with it. They've gotten away with this for years. All right? Now let one stupid federal employee who's out playing with his new toy. He probably ordered this thing off of Amazon.com. He's out there at 3 o'clock in the morning. God only knows why he was out there at 3 o'clock in the morning playing with this thing. I have no idea. But, he's out there playing with his brand new quadcopter. And I suspect what he was trying to do, these little toy quadcopters, these things weigh about 5 pounds, by the way. They're battery powered. They'll stay up in the air for about 10, 15 minutes. That's their maximum range. And they know they carry no armaments or anything like that. But in a lot of cases, they do carry a little camera, He was probably out there saying, man, I want to get some really good night shots of the White House, And he's not really hurting anything. It might be, I don't know, the way we're so paranoid about anything that even might, somebody might think might have terrorist implications. The way things are nowadays, there's probably a law against it. So he's probably skulking in the dark saying, yeah, I'm going to get me some good pictures of the White House here. And, the thing fails and it falls in the White House. All of a sudden, we need to regulate drones. We need to put all kinds of laws and regulations, and you got to have a license to fly that thing, and we got to have a license plate on it. We're going to have to figure out a way to tax it too. But this did indeed happen. Apparently, it was a federal employee, and it appears that this guy was totally innocent of any, nefarious schemes or anything. I suspect he just wanted to get some good pictures of the White House at night, so he flies his drone over the fence. I'm sure he was snapping a few pictures, and the darn thing failed on him and fell in White House grounds. Of course, they found it, and now there's this big uproar about how you maybe shouldn't have this technology. We, on the other hand, are the uppers, and if we decide we need to have a drone hit you from 5,000 miles away because we think you might be looking like a terrorist, that's a totally different story. Yeah. Ain't it wonderful? Yeah, you betcha. That one just set off my BS alarm, but yeah, that's how it is. How many football fans? I got about a minute here. How many football fans we have out there? Ever heard about Football Gate? The underinflated balls. I mean, that was in the news for about 3 days. I mean, it was like the top news item for like 3 days. You know what you're not being told? The Super Bowl is going to be a security nightmare. They got Black Hawk helicopters. They got X-ray machines. I tell you what. I don't care how much. I don't care if they give me a ticket to the Super Bowl. There is no way I would go. They're playing the music. That's it. I got to bail out. I've done enough barking at the moon for 1 week. We'll see you again next week. Good night, all. Well, yeah. Yeah, that's something. Let's see here. Super Bowl security will be reinforced by Black Hawk military-style helicopters and massive X-ray machines designed to scan large cargo trucks, all courtesy of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. What do you think about that? You know, they're probably going to be doing crotch groping. And remember when you used to go to the football game and, the beer is so expensive at a football game. You try and sneak a six-pack under your coat, you wanted to get in and see the game, but you don't want to pay that high price. Yeah, try that now, man. They'll have you down in Guantanamo. You'll be in a 6x9 with a guy named Ahab who thinks you look like a goat. Oh, boy. Here's another interesting one. I remember last week somebody said something about how Holder was going to lighten up a little bit on the asset forfeiture. Well, it appears that was all just a big kaflooey. That was one of those press moments when they basically said one thing and really are doing another. But, there is another bill working its way through the Congress right now. Bill would ban police from receiving military weapons. Now, this has become kind of an issue for a lot of us. I mean, a lot of us, remember the cop when, it was a guy in a blue suit with a captain's hat on. He had a stick and he had a .38 revolver. And, the .38 revolver was the last thing he went through. I mean, he'd run you down and pop you with his fist or hit you with his stick before the only time he'd pull that revolver is if maybe you were pointing something at him, okay? Nowadays, the cops, they act like we are Fallujah, we are Palestinians, and they are the Israeli Defense Force, and the only good one is a dead one. That seems to be the point of view more and more that we see from our police. And the police are starting to use these, military-grade weapons. I mean, they've got veritable tanks and armored personnel carriers. They dress like military. They carry military-grade weapons. They act like they are an occupying military force. Well, apparently, somebody in Tennessee, a guy named Brian Kelsey, has filed legislation that would prohibit both state and local agencies from receiving, owning, or using certain military vehicles, aircraft, and weapons. Well, hallelujah, Tennessee State Senator Brian Kelsey. Hallelujah, Tennessee. Let's get that bill passed. Let's see other states get on board with this. I don't care how tasty it looks to get, a free armored personnel carrier, a bunch of military uniforms, and a bunch of military-grade hardware. I don't care how much that gets your testosterone pumping. That's not what the American people expect of their police force. We expect you to protect and serve, not occupy. I think that was the last article. Let's see. I got to the Koch brothers. I got to underinflated footballs. Yeah. That's it, guys. That was the last of my prepared items for tonight's presentation. So at this point, I look to my esteemed live audience. What do you guys think? What was the big item in the news? I mean, there had to be at least one or two items that were hot in the news, that were, like a thorn in your butt, that dummy me forgot to cover. So as W and his gang, they wanted a broad for war crimes. Actually, Henry Kissinger dare not step foot in Italy. There are a couple of European nations that have an arrest on sight order out for Dick Cheney and George Bush the Lesser. But for the most part, these guys are fat and happy. I think the Bush family has trillions with a T, has trillions of dollars based on all the money that Papa Bush, the the greater Bush, he was able to do some serious raping and pillaging. You know that $2.5 trillion that was missing from the yeah, the Bush family. Jeb Bush does not really need the job of being president. The only reason Jeb Bush wants to be president is so that he can continue covering up the crimes of the Bush crime syndicate. Much as Hillary Clinton would love to be president to make sure that the crimes of the Clinton crime syndicate continue to be covered up. The reason we're seeing these tight-knit families is because these people have done such heinous crimes to the American people that, if enough of us ever figured out just how badly these particular crime families have raped us, yeah, they'd probably be hanging from a lamp pole, Back in the old days, when men were men and women liked it that way, that kind of activity would not be tolerated. I mean, they would be tarred, feathered, run out of town on a rail, or if the lynch mob got to them first. Yeah. But, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're fat and happy. We're sitting on the couch watching underinflated footballs, drinking flat beer. Doomsday clock. I quit looking at the doomsday clock when they started putting global warming in it. Global warming is now a factor in the doomsday clock. And I went, yeah, okay, yeah, What is Project Spartan? I don't know what Project Spartan is and how that really. I'm looking at Windows 10 right now. Windows 10 looks pretty good. Now I've got a pre-release version. I have found some issues with it that I hope will be cleaned up before it gets released. But I can tell you that so far what I see of Windows 10 looks so much better than Windows 8. I have yet to deploy a machine with Windows 8 on it, and I'm hoping that Windows 10 comes out quick enough so that I won't have to. It's kind of like Vista. So Project Spartan is a browser, okay? Is this supposed to be an eventual replacement for Internet Explorer, or if it's coming with Windows 10, I assume it's a Microsoft product. Same reason. Yeah. Ask a question or ask an IE not included. Oh, okay. Internet Explorer is not included with Windows 10. Spartan will replace it. Okay. Vista not so bad. Windows 8 really, 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 really sucks. Sky Mall, yeah. I heard about that. I looked at that item and I said, well, let's see. Is this really, for those of you who don't know what Sky Mall is, when you fly on a commercial airline, in the seat back is a little thing that tells you how to get the oxygen mask on and what the escape hatches are. And there's a little magazine, it's an entertaining little magazine that has a lot of overpriced gadgets and cute widgets, executive baubles. And if you're on a long flight, you might be, thumbing through this thing. And, you might just be tempted to pay too much for, a left-handed nibbler joint out of this thing. I don't know. I've looked at the Sky Mall. I never found anything in there that I was interested enough in buying. Basically, it's a catalog of overpriced executive widgets. I look at it, as the airline version of Brookstone. So they've got some interesting gadgets in there, but the prices on that crap, it's just a rather unusual piece of plastic junk from China, but they're charging me three prices for it. Yeah, well, apparently Sky Mall is on hard times and is filing for bankruptcy. Poor Sky Mall. The one I would miss is Radio Shack. If Radio Shack goes down, I'll really miss them. Although I tell you, I don't do as much business with Radio Shack as I used to, because it used to be you went to Radio Shack because they had all the little weird electronics gadgetry. If you needed a transistor, or you needed a resistor, or you needed some little LED or something. If you're working on some kind of electronics project, you needed a relay with a certain value or something. I remember back when I was a scout dad, I had to build one of these boxes that would launch model rockets in a controlled manner. I mean, you want a certain amount of, when you got 10, 15, 20 12-year-old boys out there just itching to launch their model rocket, you kind of want to be able to have a little bit of control over that activity, because it can get a little scary if if a certain amount of adult supervision is. So I got me a fishing tackle box or a toolbox or something, and I built into it a whole bunch of batteries and a whole bunch of relays and a whole bunch of switches and everything, and basically I could hand the kid a controller, but that controller would not launch the rocket until I put a key into a master lock. So, okay, here's your launch button. And he's got the launch button. He's ready to go. But he couldn't actually fire that thing off until I inserted the key. So it was it's kind of a safe way to do something that if you're not controlled. I got all those parts at Radio Shack. And if Radio Shack went down, man, I tell you, I'd really miss them. But, nowadays Radio Shack has the same consumer electronics junk that you get anywhere else. The interesting electronics doodads that you used to expect to find at Radio Shack, you can't find them anymore. So, I don't know. Maybe Radio Shack could go down tubes, and maybe I wouldn't miss them. It's been probably a couple of years since I've even been inside of one. That's probably why they're going bankrupt. I quit buying all my gadgets there. Dish Network violated do not call 57 million times. Why does that not surprise me? I get so darn many of these pesky calls. It's it's absurd how much of that kind of stuff I get. I've got a phone system here that does automatic screening. It's yeah, contribute to this, contribute to that, this political party, that political party, yeah, like I got enough money to, yeah. Everyone gets an Eagle Eye PC. Love it. I'm not sure what an Eagle Eye PC is. Senator who calls STEM shortage a hoax, appointed to head immigrant. What is Senator who called, what is STEM shortage? I don't know what that is. Leaded fuel ban. Well, okay. HoloLens. Okay. Well, leaded fuel. It's as far as leaded fuel goes. Lead in fuel was intended to increase octane on inferior grades of gasoline. The refineries back in the days were trying to get more gasoline produced in the same refinery. They had X number of refineries. They wanted to get as much gasoline out as they possibly could. So the gas that they were refining was of an inferior grade. And they figured out that by adding lead to the gasoline, they could increase the effective octane rating of the fuel. Now, as times have changed, was it a good thing or a bad thing? Was the ban on lead in fuel a good thing or a bad thing? To tell you the truth, I don't know. The problem is At the time, I would have said yes. At the time they banned lead, I was 100% convinced that us pumping all that lead into the environment from our automobiles was a health hazard. They sold me on it. Okay. These days, I am so suspicious of any claim. The government has lied to me so many times about so many things that I almost don't believe it unless the Russians say it. Now, if my government says it and the Russians say the same thing, then I kind of nod my head and I said, okay, well, that's probably true. If my government says one thing and the Russian government says something else, flip a coin. It's hard to tell which one of them's lying. I certainly do not trust such a declaration coming out of the U.S. government that lead is, for all I know, lead enhances fertility and makes men more virile, makes women more beautiful. For all I know, lead is good for you. I doubt it. Chances are the banning of lead was indeed a good thing. Fake engine noise. Fake engine noise is the auto industry's dirty little secret. Fake engine noise. Fake engine. Well, I know with playing with the timing a little bit, you could get your engine to knock or not knock. I don't know. Is that what you're talking about? No more scopes for inventors and for cheaper made motors without. The nation to find inoculation to kill cancer will rule the world. Did you know that your body kills cancer every day? Every day you get cancer cells. Every day your body kills them off. What determines whether somebody dies of cancer is that the person's immune system can no longer effectively eliminate the cancer. So either the cancers are forming faster than the immune system can deal with them, or the immune system is in some way suppressed. And there's many things that we eat that suppress our immune system and make us more amenable to hosting cancers. Lead keeps the aliens from taking over your mind, yeah. I get a giggle out of all the people with tinfoil hat wearing, alien loving types. Oh well. IRS warns of downtime risks as Congress makes cuts. Yeah, I'll tell you, this year, taxes are going to be a pain for me this year because I got all kinds of Obamacare issues. I got all kinds of real estate issues that they're going to be a pain for me this year. I may have to break bad and just hire a CPA to do my taxes. It's gotten so damned complex. I can't figure it out anymore, and you can't get any help from the IRS. Traditionally, a lot of you are going to pick on me for this and tell me how foolish I am and this, that, and the other thing. But I've done battle with the IRS once in my life. That was enough. I fought the law, and the law won. I don't need that aggravation again. Frankly, it was a terrible distraction. Turned out to be a very expensive ward wage for absolutely no advantage. So these days, I overpay on my taxes. I take no chances. A lot of very legitimate deductions that I could indeed claim. Ain't no way I'm taking that deduction because it's just going to raise a red flag, and I don't need the aggravation. So chances are, I'll just, I'll wind up paying a hell of a lot more tax than I really should, just to keep that jerk out of my business. Just to keep him out of my business. Leave me alone. It's like paying the mob not to come wreck your store. Do I believe that lead from fuel spread all over the earth? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. Keep in mind, there's a lot of countries are still using leaded gasoline. The United States, Canada, and most of Western Europe banned it back in the 70s. But a lot of the world still enhances their poorly refined fuel with lead additives. So whether you like it or not, chances are you're still breathing a little bit of lead. I mean, I've lived in many homes that had lead-based paint on the walls. I've been around for a while, so I remember when lead was added to paint your home with. Now these days, the idea, with Fukushima and everything, how do I get some of that lead-based paint? I might want to paint my house with lead. All the radiation and the electromagnetics. I don't know. It might not be so bad to switch back to lead-based paint. I'm not sure. Well, as far as Pyle's mansion burning up, we don't know yet. I don't know yet that was a firebomb. I'm still looking at that one. There was a case of a mid-level manager that was involved in the mortgage fraud scenario back in 2000 that committed suicide by 2 bullets in the back of the head here recently. So these deaths of bankers and mid-level finance people is still going on. I don't know what the count is now. I think it's up in the 60s or 70s. It is still a very dangerous occupation to be an investment banker, particularly if you know any of the inside skinny of who is dipping deep. This IT guy Pyle, I'm still looking at that story. I'm not ready to come down on that story yet. I really don't know yet what the truth is. I have not seen convincing evidence that it was a firebombing, although it's a very suspicious death. Right now it's looking very suspicious. IBM is not going to lay off 20% of its workforce. They are going to have a reduction in force. They'll probably lay off a few thousand. But yeah, I think that story was floated to give IBM's stock a boost so that some insiders could do some profit taking before the plunge. Now, there's a lot of people out there say that our stock market here in the United States and in Western Europe, there's a lot of people that say that the stock market could tank sometime this year. But see, the problem is I get economic collapse fatigue because they've been crying chicken little about how the economy is going to collapse for some years now. To be honest with you, I thought the economy was on its way to a collapse. I thought the entire U.S. government was going to collapse back during the Nixon days and during the transition to Jimmy Carter. I looked at it and said, okay, I think we're done. I think we brought this government down. Whew, boy, we won. And, they managed to pick themselves up and continue on. I'm not sure that there will ever be, well, I shouldn't say ever, but I'm not sure that there's going to be an economic collapse like, back to Mad Max days at all. I'm not so sure that it's going to happen that way. I think if you want to see an economic collapse, find find where the homeless people are living. That's what an economic collapse looks like. You're probably okay right now. You got a job, you got electricity, you can run a computer to watch and or listen to this presentation. So even if you're only hanging on by the skin of your teeth, at least you're hanging on. A lot of folks aren't so lucky, and they're living in tents outside the city with very little hope of re-entering the job market. For those people, the economic collapse has already happened. I think for most of us, what we're going to, economic collapse for most of us is going to be a significant reduction in our standard of living. If you're considering yourself lucky right now to have steak twice a week, chances are you're going to have to reduce to maybe once a week or maybe once every other week. You're going to be eating a lot of hamburger and a lot of chicken instead of steak and potatoes. For those of us who are already eating hamburger and chicken, we may wind up, in line at the McDonald's to get that dollar meal. That'll probably wind up being $2. Economic collapse for many of us will mean a significant reduction in our standard of living. For those who are already hanging on by a thread, well, they're living in tents, in tent communities outside many major cities. You want to see what economic collapse looks like? That's what it looks like. And it's here now. For many, the economy has already collapsed. So for those of you who are waiting for the economic collapse to happen and prepping and putting away your guns and your canned food and your ramen noodles, wake up, it's already happened. Maybe not to you, but for many, it's already here. Alpo, yeah, really. I talk, my cat eats human grade tuna. I was buying some tuna fish at the Trader Joe's the other day, and a lady said, "Well, you must really like tuna fish." And I said, "Oh, no, that's for my cat." And she said, "Wait a minute, you're buying human grade tuna for your cat? We have old people here on pensions that are buying the cat tuna for them to consume." And I said, "Okay, yeah, Alpo and cat tuna, yeah, that, once you're at that point, yes, the economy has collapsed." Are they fracking in my backyard? Well, I live just south of Washington, D.C., and if you dig 2 inches under the soil anywhere near Washington, D.C., you hit a layer of BS. After 200 years, the outflow of BS from the Washington, D.C. area has absolutely contaminated everything. I mean, our groundwater is totally contaminated with congressional BS. So if they tried to frack anywhere within 100 miles of Washington, D.C., they hit this thick layer of damn near impenetrable BS. So fracking would be a waste of time here. Now, just south of me in central Virginia, they are doing a significant amount of fracking. As a matter of fact, one of the rumors that's going around is, a couple years ago, they were doing some fracking around Marion County down in central Virginia, and they managed to set off a couple of, minor earthquakes that apparently were intense enough that they did a little bit of damage to the North Anna nuclear reactor. So yeah, they're doing fracking near me, but not in my backyard. All right, guys, it's getting late, and my voice is starting to fail on me. So one more time, if there's any last-minute items that we need to discuss before I shut her down, package her up, and bundle her up for YouTube, speak now or hold your peace until next week. Any other items? Alrighty, guys. I think I am going to go ahead and bag it at this time. I want to thank you all for spending your Tuesday evening listening to me barking at the moon as if I knew what the hell I was talking about. But, yeah, you betcha. We'll be back next week, and we will just do it all over again. Good night, all.
Love of the turnarounds. None of us are leaving here alive. Whoa, what will you say? turn around. Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn, won't you turn around?